Okay, whenever you're ready, Megan, I'll start the stopwatch, or if you want to start it.
You.
You're good.
Good?
Mhm.
Good. You ready?
Ready when you are.
Cool. Well, hi, Sky, and welcome back to Aviate Wealth. We are so excited to have you here, and we just wanted to check in with how you're doing. Has there been any big changes in your life since we last talked? Good. Well, I'm glad to hear everything's going well. I know in our last meeting, we talked about getting your client profile information together, as well as outlining the goals that you have for your financial plan and really honing in on what you expect from us out as a financial advisor. Today, with our meeting, we're going to go over a few different areas of your financial plan. And the way that Aviate Wealth works is while I am your client relationship manager, we do bring in a team of specialists that really go to a deeper level on the different aspects that we have set out for your plan. So today we have our education planning specialist, which is Corrigan, and our retirement planning specialist, Zach, who is going to go over those two sections. I specialize in tax, and so at the end of the meeting, I'll go into that. But before we get started, do you have any questions? Great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Corrigan, I know you have some really cool things set out for Scott.
All right, thanks for getting us started, Megan. So, Scott, I'd like to begin by expressing how much we admire your desire to not only help your family, but also to help your family build generational wealth. And on top of this, making funding your nephew's education one of your top financial priorities. We really emphasize the value of family here at AVA, and we are so glad that your goals align with our values. Before we dive into the detailed recommendations we had for your nephew's education plan, we actually have an analogy to help you understand this process. Here at Aviate Wealth, we like to think of education planning as growing a tree of opportunity for your nephews. To begin growing a tree, you must begin by planting a sapling. In the context of education planning, this sapling is going to be a 529 plan, which you will create for each of your 3 nephews. Anyone with a green thumb knows that you must also nurture and maintain a sapling to let it grow. And for us, this means that as time goes on, we'll be saving money and making consistent contributions into each 529 plan. As you make these contributions, we'll be monitoring the investment growth within each account and ensuring we're on track. Following this basic outline, by the time Oliver, Odie, and Orion are ready to go to college, they will each have a fruitful tree of opportunity waiting for them to harvest. Do you have any questions so far? No? That's perfect. Now let's move on to some more specific recommendations. Firstly, you might be wondering exactly what a 529 plan is. And essentially, a 529 is a type of investment account which will allow your contributions to grow tax-free so long as the money is spent on qualified educational expenses, such as tuition, room and board, the books they need for classes, and things like that. Another major benefit of the 529 plan is that there are tax deductions available, which would be up to $8,000 for every dollar you spend putting into a 529. And this is a tax deduction available for Georgia state taxes. Now, there are other education savings accounts, but a 529 plan provides the most flexibility and will allow you to be in full control of the funds should you ever change your mind about funding your education. We're good so far? All right, sounds good. Let's move on. Before we move forward, let's take a look at some of the assumptions we made for your nephew's education plan. College costs can differ a lot depending on whether they're going in-state or out of state, whether they're going to a public institution or a private institution, and it can really complicate things. So as we developed these projections for you, we assumed that Oliver, Odie, and Orion would be going to an in-state public institution. We found that funding 3 full university educations was infeasible if they were to go to a private institution or an out-of-state institution. If you do want to look into funding these options for them, it would require sacrifices to either your current standard of living or other financial goals you have in your plan. Here you can also see that we're factoring in the all-important tuition inflation, which is projected to rapidly increase the cost of college, and between 1980 and 2020, increase the cost of college by 14 times. And that's why it's so important to consider when considering education planning. Now let's take a look at the contributions you'll need to make to achieve this goal to fund all of their educations. We wanted to show you all the options you had in funding their education. So as Oliver, Odie, and Orion grow up, you could make annual savings, which would cost around $30,000 a year, and end up costing you $442,000 out of pocket. Now, we also have a second option. Leveraging the $2 million you expect to receive in 2023, you could lower that annual amount to around $8,800, but this would require you to allocate $80,000 per 529 plan when you do receive that $2 million. And this lowers your out-of-pocket cost to around $361,000. The final option would be to do no annual contributions and do one lump sum out of the $2 million for around $334,000. And each of these options does have their own benefits and drawbacks, and we actually recommend that you go with the middle option, which we'll go into more detail now. Ultimately, the decision is going to be yours, but we recommend that you go with this middle option because it allows you to take advantage of the state tax deductions for around $8,000 towards your state taxes. And it also does not require you to make any compromises to your current standard of living or other financial goals. The savings required under this middle option is actually going to come out of your increase in salary that you're expecting over the coming years. If you follow our recommendations here, this is what we project the balance of each 529 account to be over time. You can clearly see how tuition inflation is going to impact the cost of each FU's college education, with Oliver costing the least and Orion ended up costing a fair amount more, which is why we have to plan for these things. Just to recap, we recommend you open a 529 plan for Oliver, Odie, and Orion individually. We also recommend that you make the annual contributions as outlined in your financial plan, as well as contribute $80,000 to each account when you receive the $2 million in 2023. Through these actions, we are excited to see the tree of opportunity that we can build together for your nephew's education, and also the strong foundation of opportunity that this will provide them to build generational wealth. In order to assist those that you love, you must also have a strong foundation for yourself, which is why we brought in Zach today, our retirement expert, and he's going to explain some of the recommendations for your solid foundation in your retirement plan.
Hi, Sky. It's great to see you again. Before we jump into the specifics of your retirement situation, starting our analysis, I just wanted to take a little time to answer your questions you had about Social Security. You were curious about whether Social Security would be enough for you to retire on. So we went ahead and estimated the benefit. And if you retired at the age of 70, to maximize your total benefit, you would get about $25,000 annually. While this really is an incredible amount, it is unfortunately not quite enough for you to retire on. And it's because of this that we are going to recommend that you build a strong financial plan. Another question a lot of our clients have about Social Security is whether it'll shut down or not in the future. And while we are not political experts here at AV8, we strongly believe that Social Security will be with you for the long run. There are tons of ways that Social Security could be funded, and I will gladly go into more specifics about that with you, but for now, just know that we have assumed you will receive about $25,000 in benefits starting at age 70. Now that we have covered your retirement plan, let's take a look at your current retirement situation. Currently, with the amount of money you have saved up, if you retired at age 65 and lived until about age 120, I'm so sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties.
You're okay. Yeah.
Not working?
No, it's not working at all. Okay, there it is. There we go. 1 second. All right, I'm gonna start again from now. Now that we have covered your retirement situation, let's take a look at your current situation. Currently, with the amount of money that you have saved up, if you retired at age 65 and lived until about if you retired at age 65 and lived up $120,000 a year in your retirement, your money would last you until age 72. That is a total of 7 years you would get to spend in retirement. Well, this is a really bleak outlook. I'm here to tell you that with a solid financial plan, you can have an incredible retirement. Now, there are 4 main factors that will affect your retirement. These are investment location, retirement age, savings rate, and wage replacement ratio. So let's get started with investment location. We recommend that you utilize a simplified employee pension plan as your retirement vehicle. This retirement account is uniquely set up to benefit small business owners and self-employed individuals like yourself. Now, Megan will get a little bit more into the details about what it means to be self-employed versus starting your own business, but as for the retirement plan is concerned, there are 2 different tax advantages that this account will allow you to take advantage of. These are the advantage of a traditional IRA, where you get to contribute pre-tax money into the account and only pay taxes on the distributions. But you will also receive a separate tax deduction on your business income for the amount that you contribute towards this account. This double tax advantage is unique to your situation, and we highly recommend that you take full advantage of it. The next factor we are going to take a look at is what age you retire at. Retirement age is the single most important factor of your retirement. As you can see from our graph, retiring 10 years later at age 65, as opposed to age 55, will grant you an extra 30 years in retirement. It's because of this that we recommend that you retire at age 65. We were unfortunately unable to find a way for you to both retire early and achieve all of your financial goals. Now, if you ever reevaluated and decided that retiring early was more important than some of your other financial goals, please come talk to us. I'll gladly redo this chart and see what it'll look like for you to retire at age 55 or age 60. But just know for going forward in your retirement plan, we have recommended that you retire at age 65. The next factor we're going to take a look at is the amount of money you save annually. Savings rate is not quite as impactful as the age of retirement. As you can see from the graph, the amount of money at age 100 differs by about $1 million as opposed to $3 million, but that does not mean that this impact is negligible. What was most impactful for me after making this graph was that saving $29,000 annually versus $20,000 annually led to an extra 7 years in retirement. It's because of this that we recommend you save about $29,000 annually for your retirement. Finally, we have wage replacement ratio, or in other words, how much money you will live off of in retirement. This is the least impactful of all of your retirement variables, but it is, in my opinion, the hardest one to stay consistent in. Living within your means is much easier said than done, but being consistent with this is the only way you can really utilize all of your past effort that you've put towards your retirement plan. Now, all of these factors have a significant impact on your retirement. Some more than significant than others, but all of them very significant. And at the end of the day, choosing what to do with each individual one is a matter of personal preference. But given your other admirable and ambitious financial goals, we have built you the following recommended retirement plan. We recommend that you contribute $29,000 annually into a SEP IRA, retire at age 65 with annual expenses of less than $105,000 a year, and start taking your Social Security benefits at age 70 to allow for the maximum total benefit. Following this plan will allow you to have a long and comfortable retirement that you deserve. Now, to get a little bit more into the details of how this SEP IRA is going to work and other tax advantages, Megan is going to talk to you about the tax side of our plan.
So first and foremost, as we jump into our tax planning, the biggest thing that I want to communicate to you is how important it is to find a CPA to do your taxes. CPAs allow you to get an accurate number or an accurate amount for your taxes per year, and with the fluctuation between yearly income that you bring in for your company, this is going to be something that impacts your plan in many different ways. The other things that I want to touch on today, especially with setting up a business entity, is how important it is that you establish a limited liability company, or an LLC as we'll be referring to it as. What tax deductions you can take with the business expenses due to setting up this business entity, as well as outline the past, present, and future tax years that we see for you with your art business. So first, establishing LLC, there are so many big pros that outweigh the few cons that we see. First, it's easy to establish with a very low cost. With everything that you do in the art business and how dependent you are with this being your job, we want to make sure that you're protected from any liability that your company may face. In the future, I know it might sound scary, but if something were to happen and you were to get sued, having an LLC will protect the assets that you have within your company from those that you own on a personal level, which is why we think it's really important to establish one of these as soon as possible. We have a bunch of different resources we're able to send your way, as well as some different people that have experience in setting up LLCs that will be beneficial to you throughout the process that we see. You're also able to deduct losses from the company from the taxes that you'll file with your CPA. With your company, with your art business, we know that there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And so while you may have not faced any losses from the past, that's not to say that you might not face those losses in the future. So with this in mind, we want to make sure that we are setting you up for life, not only with your art business, but on a personal level as well. Some of the cons that we see is, we know you mentioned that you wanted to possibly move states in the future. The laws vary state to state with the LLCs. And so if you decide to move states, we'll be able to assist you in doing the research on how those laws do vary, but it's good to know that they do vary from state to state, as well as being subject to employment taxes. So while you'll be paying the same rate as the employer and the employee, with being self-employed and having the Social Security tax and the Medicare tax taken from your paychecks, you will be able to deduct half of these off of your tax filings that you do every year. But we recommend setting up a CPA that will be more helpful in establishing what that amount will look like. Next, I want to go into the tax deductions, and these are for your business expenses specifically. So by setting up an LLC associated with your art business, you'll be able to deduct those expenses that you believe are directly related to your business transactions. We know that one of the things that you mentioned was that you like to travel for inspiration for your artwork, and being able to keep up with those receipts and all of the expenses that go in with traveling, showing that to your CPA and being able to determine whether or not you're able to deduct that will be a significant benefit in being able to plan your finances and maybe even allocating that money other places in your plan. So one of the things that we're going to provide you within our Aviate Wealth Care package is a binder that you'll be able to use to keep up with all the receipts and different paperwork that you keep up with the expenses that you'll face within your art business. The biggest rule of thumb is that if you think it might be related to your art business, be sure to keep it and visit your CPA to make sure that you're actually taking those tax deductions in a way that you're able to legally. So biggest recommendation here is to set up a CPA who may specialize in taking business expenses for tax deductions. So now an overview of your past, present, and future tax years. So in the past, we know that you owe about $17,000 in back taxes. We don't know if you've made any contributions to those back taxes so far, but if you have, please send us that paperwork and we'll be able to rearrange some of the money that we have allocated from your 2022 yearly cash flow in order to pay those off and allocate it somewhere else. With the present tax year, I know the last time we talked, I think you said that you filed your taxes, but I didn't get a clear answer on how much you still owed. I just want to make sure that you did file those, and do you know the estimated amount that you may still owe on top of the $30,000 you've already paid? Nope, that's totally fine. It's good to know that you filed them. Estimated amount right now. If you could just forward that over to us, that way we have the most accurate information in our database. We would really appreciate that to make sure that what we have on our comprehensive plan, which will be forwarded to you in the future, takes that into consideration. So for the future, we are so excited to hear that your art business really is taking off and that you'll be bringing in a $2 million contract for the 2023 tax year. We went ahead and kind of gave you an estimate of what taxes will look like going into the federal and state levels. We have that at being about $750,000. While that might sound scary, on our next slide, we do have a graph that kind of outlines what that will look like for your contract overall. But for tax years 2024 and going into the future, we have about $44,000 going to the federal and state level. And the biggest thing is, while these aren't exact numbers, your CPA that you set up a relationship with will be able to get you those answers specifically as we monitor your new tax deductions as well as the profit you bring in. So this is the 2023 contract cash flow. With the goals that we see, we have about $925,000 going to your goals. So that's anything from education planning to wanting to care for your parents, as well as buying your new home in whatever state you choose. We have the $250,000 going to the taxes to be able to take care of those and pay those off. We have a $200,000 commission to give to your agent, as well as factoring in paying off those student loans, which will give you a lot of financial freedom in the future. So while that's all we have for today, we know that we have a new meeting, or our next meeting set up for next Tuesday, the 13th at 2 p.m. I do want to confirm to make sure that's still good with you. Awesome, that's so good to hear. In that meeting, we'll be covering the investment planning, estate planning, risk management, and insurance planning, as well as an overall comprehensive view of our action plan going into the future in our next meeting. And we'll have specialists on our call for that as well. With our presentation, with the notes, any helpful links that we have, as well as the recording that we have of the meeting, will be sent to your email as well. And if you have any specific questions for our specialists that joined us here today, I have them on this presentation, as well as we'll put them in the email. But overall, we are so excited to welcome you into our family here at Aviate Wealth, and we cannot wait to see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
The end.
Very good. How'd y'all feel?
Rusty.
Rusty is the best way I could describe it. Also, the tech issues of
Yeah.
trying to read that was hard. But
Yeah, I went off script. You may not have noticed, but I noticed.
I don't
Yeah,
have,
so I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that going off script, I think that I didn't feel like any of y'all were reading, which is good. That's the way it should be, If anybody, I mean, have you ever been to a class where the professor just reads the slide to you, how bad that is? It's like,
I don't go to that class anymore.
exactly. Yeah, the worst combination in the world is a professor that reads the slides and takes attendance, right? So it's like one of those things. But no, I felt like y'all did a good job. I thought the content was solid. I think that the flow was good. How did you stop the clock? How'd y'all do on time for where you need to be?
we had
Good.
20 seconds to spare, and that there was also like probably a good 20 extra seconds from like tech issues and stuff like that.
Perfect.
So we're good.
Perfect. So I think that's the rhythm you've got to have. I feel like y'all covered everything smooth. It didn't feel stressed or rushed. Rusty's a good word. I felt like it was one of those things that, everything that you probably aren't happy with is very easily overcome by practice and eliminating, little filler words or the ands and ums, but there wasn't as much of that as I always listen for. Trying to think, I took a few notes. I felt like the flow as a team was really well balanced. Emphasizing the team up front's a good thing, and just the specialist covering, the follow up from last meeting and the introduction and the agenda. That's actually the way I do client meetings today. I just got out of a client meeting and where we did a presentation, and it's very similar. The idea of illustrations is good. You and I have talked about that, Corrigan, but using the illustration in the college funding, I think is helpful. And to me, anytime you can take the complicated, make it simple is good. And using those things, it was a good balance of keeping it simple, but also being thorough in terms of state tax deductions and, investing and growing, laying out the spreadsheet and so forth. So I thought that was really good. The 529 spreadsheet, you need to reformat to make sure those lines line up. It's just a little bit off on that one. So
The 2024.
Oh yeah, I do see that.
like 2022, 2023, and 2024 are all off. So it just looks a little like confusing there, but I would kind of make sure that looks, unless I'm misreading it, but it looks like I was kind of like trying to figure out. So just making sure what you got there.
I really not
I noticed. I just thought it was supposed to be like that, and then now you said I'm like, that's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah. So anyways, the only other thing I would maybe do on there is like above the three options, right? Like option 1, option 2, option 3.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Ooh, yeah.
we can do that.
Okay, yeah,
Because that would make it a little more clear. Like, okay, these are actually 3 alternatives, not, I don't know. And I mean, I understood it, but it's like that would be an easy way to just like, then instead of just saying go with the middle one, like option B or option 2 is like your best recommendation. I think that's the only things I saw on that kind of feedback. Retirement wise, I felt like same thing, good rhythm. The investment location page was a little wordy. If you could figure out any ways to simplify that or add, I don't know, just if it's possible to simplify, maybe that's helpful. Sometimes it's just going to be wordy, and that is what it is. Another way you could do it is like kind of change the layout so it doesn't look so much like a PowerPoint, and like what would be, like SEP, simplified employee pension, SEP in parentheses, key features and like list them below or something, just like doing it a little bit where it's a little bit fresher and different. I think it's going to get the judge's attention and not just feel like, okay, they just typed all this in a PowerPoint and moved on. Like, you know, especially because up to this point, everything has looked really creative and well done. This was like the first slide where it's like, okay, they just, you know, bulleted the bulleted list, right? It's like, you know, default. So if there's an opportunity to improve that, that's good, and kind of reformat it. Let's keep tabbing through. Let me see if anything else jumped out.
Just
Do
tell me when
these
to
make
stop.
sense to you? What the conversation?
Yeah. I talk to clients about similar things. I do it a little different, but I think that, you know, basically you might want to summarize on one page. Go back one more page. So between go back forward now. Between there and then go to the next page.
This one,
list them out.
One more forward. Yeah, so you may, but somewhere in there between like where current situation and changes, you may want to say like, hey, there's 4 spigots we can turn. That's the way I sort of describe it. It's like there's 4 dials we can turn.
and we can put
So
7 on.
we can turn up the retirement age. We can turn up savings rate. We can turn up, you know, this or that income replacement. And I find that like a one pager that just summarizes those 4 things. And what I would even summarize too, what I typically say on there is, you know, hey, there's actually a few different things we can focus on and change to impact your retirement plan. One of those is retirement age. One of those is savings rate. One of those is, you know, these are the 4. Each of these options may sound a little extreme, but what we found is for most clients, they like to tweak a little bit of each. And so then you're sort of setting it up. So let's look at each one independently. So like retirement age, yeah, if we push you back, you know, this far, look how much it helps. You know, you may not want to wait and retire 10 years later, but that's if you kept everything else the same. Like then we go to the next one. What if you saved this much? You know, so then it's like the client doesn't have to go extreme on one thing unless they want to. There may be one area that they say, hey, the only non-negotiable to me is retiring at 55.
Yeah.
And so like I have some clients, I have a client that is a doctor, and both of his parents had serious health concerns they were diagnosed with at like 55, like Parkinson's or Lou Gehrig's ALS or whatever. So basically that's something that he was like, for me, retiring at 55 is a non-negotiable because I want to be there with my kids and like live life. So he's like, make it work, right? And it's like, tell me what I need to do. For most clients, it's like, yeah, well, we want to retire at 55, but we could do up to 62. Okay, so how's that impact savings, and like what amount can we still live on? Or our non-negotiable is like, I don't care how long I want to work, but I want to live on, you know, 100,000 a year, you know, every year. So does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
I think y'all present it really well, but it's like maybe add one more slide that's like, here's 4 dials you can turn, or four things you can adjust. Now let's dive into those a little deeper, because it kind of went from 0 to 60 there, like, and I feel like that might help you track a little better. Like, okay, we're going to dig into each of these, and then the culmination is our recommendation is you turn the dial on all 4 a little bit.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I really like that. Thank you.
You have like circles going around too. Like this one's going really far. Like,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Is like, actually this one we're turning all the way to 10, you know, or whatever, but versus this one. And I like that illustration because you can get agreement, and they may say, you know, what does it look like if we stop this one at this age? And you can even give that feedback of like, if it's really important for you to, you know, focus on one of these at a certain point, we can work around that. But at their age right now, that's a good way to paint the picture.
yeah. Okay.
moving forward to tax advice, I thought that was good. I think that just shooting straight, you have the most opportunity to improve your presentation, language and skills. I can tell, like, you did a good job, and I'm not wanting to make you self-conscious about, but I think that that's where a little bit of practice and that confidence is going to shine through, mainly because I saw how good you did on the intro.
Mhm.
And so the difference on your intro versus your tax language, I could sense that confidence or language a little bit slower, sort of processing and, like, you know, thinking through it a little bit more. And so get to where that's confident and polished and you can just spit it out, and you're going to be a lot happier with that, I think. I thought the high points on the tax piece were really good. You did a really good balance of here's ideas, but also it all comes down to, you know, get a good CPA, work with a good CPA. You might even pitch in. I always love to pitch in. As your financial planners, we're happy to join you for any of those meetings with your CPA if you'd like us to.
That
Yeah,
was
we-
one thing I know I missed, because
What's that?
that's one thing that I'd planned to say in the presentation. I was like, once we got to the conclusion, I was like, I missed it. The
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that
golden
makes sense.
opportunity.
You had the time to say.
Yes.
So that'll be an easy add, and that's just, it reemphasizes the teamwork, and, you know, we're your team of professionals here to serve you, and so, you know, I think that's a nice value add. You can tab through these. I'll see if anything else jumps out.
These are really wordy. Do you think that there's a better way?
Yeah, I mean, some of that's just tax. I mean, tax and estate.
Yeah.
Tax is a little bit tricky. Like this one, yeah, I mean, that's very wordy. I would definitely think of, like, maybe you add like 3 little,
Graphics.
I don't know, three graphics that are like each one that says something else, like, you know, tax deduction. I don't know. I'm trying to think, come up with something maybe a little more creative. You know, that's saying, hey, this is the way that this is something important for you with your LLC. I mean, I think that creativity would shine here, because I think that by default everyone else is going to be pretty, you know, similar on the tax side. It's like, it's really easy to focus on the data, and it's not as easy to translate it into like a graphic. But remember, you're meeting with an artist. Like, speak to that.
Yeah.
Speak to that left brain versus the right brain. You know, really try and shine, and, you know, show. You know, I've had clients that were like, hey, you need to have more colors on your plan. Like, so now I do a report card for my clients, and it's like, you know, I use the red, yellows, and greens, or I use the blues for this, and like, it's, but I like really bringing things to life a little bit more. And so I think that with this, if you can think of that creatively, you know, really try and speak to that artist. An artist would look at this and they wouldn't read it. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Now, once again, your judges aren't artists, but it is something that if you can take that mindset, I think it would really stand out, and, you know, be something that would be helpful. So might consider how you could analyze that, and that's something you could probably ask some other people that you present to that are smarter than me, and kind of come up with some good ideas. But I think that would be good. Let's see, that one, I think that's a good slide, just to say, like, hey, you know, we've got some business to clean up and take care of. Once again, maybe even think about how you can be more creative to present that other than the bulleted list. I think that's a helpful thing to think on.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm writing all of this down in my notes.
Yeah.
I could go through, because I've already got ideas for like graphics for these. Like, this could be, or flipped, really. So past, present, future, problem, solution, or problem, recommendation.
I love it. Yeah.
Like, put the graphics up top with past, present, and future.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, take it from something negative to something positive. Like, how do you take the problem and the solution? I love that focus. And like, so past, hey, you have back taxes, a solution, like, yeah, you just paid out cash flow, no big deal. Present, just confirm, did you file, but also, how much do you owe? Are you paying quarterly taxes, or are you paying, do you typically file an extension? I don't know. I mean, any of that, what you've got's great, but just thinking of how do you present it creatively, it's really good. That's the number one thing too, that I hear complaints on people from their CPA. No one I work with loves their CPA, right? They're just like, man, I wish they gave me better ideas and like helped me creatively to save money. So I liked the next page. I thought that was that's an example of a creative way to say, this is where it's going. The only thing I would change on there is where it says income 2 million. I would put that left of the line like everything else. I know that's like a sort of minimal thing, but if you could figure out how to get that outside on the left so that you kind of like see it, I feel like that would be a helpful thing to keep it consistent. And, but I really like the way that breaks down, just like, okay, this is I would change agent pay to agent commission too. I know that's minor, but or agent sales commission, just so that's like very clear when you look at, if I were looking at this for the first time. At first I was like, what does that mean? And so that would be helpful. But yeah, I think this is good, kind of breaking it down into everything. But that's a great example though, because like if you listed all this in just a bulleted line, it's like,
Over my head.
we've all seen a million of those, but it's like, oh, this is actually like flows pre. It's like, okay, and it's correlated to the size. Like, okay, yeah, 39,000 for a truck's a lot, but then you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, this is actually the one thing we got like negative feedback on. We got really, really good positive feedback on our plan, but this one was one of the things I didn't like.
Which was
I
so
don't
confusing
I don't know why
to me.
this is my favorite part of what
they-
we put together.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it personally. I mean, I think that, well, and let me put this way too. Do y'all know who the judges are?
No,
No, I don't think they tell us.
it
They-
depends a lot, but yeah.
Christopher Moore had said a few things about like some of the judges, like, oh, one person's gonna be mean, this one person's probably not gonna talk at all, but she's like gonna be a judge, that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
besides like their background and everything, there's not really a lot of information to
He said a
find
lot
on
of them had an insurance focus.
Yeah.
And a lot of like annuity focus and investment focus is typically their specialty.
You said they do have insurance annuity investment.
Yeah, that's typically their specialty, is what he's saying.
Okay.
Planning as a whole.
Interesting.
them.
Because I was just trying to think too, like, what you could do to speak to their, like, to resonate, because I know that's maybe not the right way to think about it, but it is a competition, so you got to know your audience. And so if I'm presenting this plan to a 20-year-old versus an 80-year-old, like if it's an older judge, they may look at this and be like, I don't like that. But
I want to say they're relatively young.
okay, so that's interesting.
But
Yeah,
industry.
I remember they called this graph like confusing and hard to read, which was so weird to me. I didn't expect that response.
Well,
It was only from one judge though.
It was only
there
from one
There's
judge.
3
oh,
judges.
is that how it's
we-
separated?
Yeah, we only
Yeah.
got feedback for this from
Oh.
one judge, so it might have just been like a personal preference thing.
That is interesting.
Could be.
Like all positive.
people are weird that he may not have liked the colors. Like, I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
You might change it from contract cash flow to $2 million breakdown or something like that.
Also, the year we should double check, because on the other
It's
slide we said
2023.
23.
That was inconsistent within the plan as well.
Yeah.
It was. Wow.
You thought it was 23. I thought it was 24, and
I think
I didn't know.
One of y'all said 23 in the presentation.
I think it's 23, but
it's
but
23.
they mentioned that it's like has
She
to do with
won't
their
get it
taxes
till
in
the end.
2024.
Oh, I
It was
remember
like
what
this
it was,
whole
yeah.
thing.
So
It was
she-
the 2023 contract, but when we were like,
we're assuming she gets it
in
the end,
2024.
so she spends it in 2024.
yeah, so all of our
So
cash
we
flows
had-
assume she got the money in 2024, but it is a 2023 contract, and that is what we should.
yeah.
We're not sure.
So
Sorry.
you may even want to just take the year off, and
We can figure it out.
so you could say like lump sum, $2 million lump sum breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so one thing you could do to frame that a little bit differently is say, you know, in a typical income year, you know what your income looks like and what your taxes and spending looks like. Since this is an abnormal year, we wanted to break that down more specifically. And you know, you could go with something like that. You could also kind of you could be creative with that and say, you know, we mirrored the cash flow off your most recent art installation, you know, or something. You could kind of be creative there and be like, you know, we actually you know, use the colors or use the style of your most recent art installation to help you with the breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
So then that's like you're out where you're like, okay, we're imagining that, but then the judges are looking at like, oh yeah, it's an artist. Like, I don't know. You
Yeah,
could be
I
kind of,
think that's a good point.
Ooh, that's a
It's
good
been
idea.
A lot of
Yeah.
art.
To play
Art-
to your visual brain. like-
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. And just say, you know, this is a unique year. And because of the unique element of a $2 million contract can have a meaningful impact on your plan, but it's important for us to really be aware of where that money's going. And
Yeah.
you know, in terms of the taxes, the reason we want to focus on this is because, you know, that is a large amount of taxes, but you know, we're also able to accomplish a lot of goals there. So anyways, I think that's good. Next page real quick. And I like the follow-up next steps looking forward. Do you need all three of y'all's contact info on there?
The way that I presented it is like, this is their specialist info. You already have mine. I'll be sending out an email. Do you think I should
Okay.
put mine?
I'd put it in there. I'd put you on there third as the tax specialist
Okay. I can
and
do
client
that.
relationship manager.
All right.
Can't hurt.
Is that all? Did you have any other feedback so we can pivot into sort of going over FPSA?
No, I'm good. I think any other questions y'all for me?
Yep.
Thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, no, I think y'all are gonna do a great job. I mean, I'm excited for you guys. Definitely, it's an honor to get to present there, and I think that just over prepare. You know, you'll fall to your whatever level of preparation you give it, and so I used to do some business competitions in college, and by the end I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of going through this, but when we did that, we would nail it. And so, you know, even just you pick up these little things that you can do. So I love that y'all are putting the work in. So if y'all think of anything next week before, you know, Monday or whatever, before you present, if you have any questions you think of, reach out to me. Yes, FPSA.
Yeah, you can have it if you want.
Okay.
All right.
And we do only have like 10 minutes to this. Me and Zach have to be somewhere at 5.
Yeah, no, I got 2 minutes. That's fine. So, I mean, I didn't really have anything crazy. Really, all I had was you and I got to talk about it. And so to me, it was just about, you know, really bringing value to the group. The main things we talked about that I had in mind were once again, taking the complicated, making it simple, using analogies, using stories. I think that that's a really meaningful thing to do. You know, using stories, I think, is one of those things that is a game changer. And so anytime that we can do that, I always like to use those sort of examples. And so I'm happy to go over those. I know you mentioned doing it, deciding the order that we go in. What were your thoughts on that for?
Yeah,
Russ?
We typically have like a format now. We sort of just do announcements. It takes like 5 minutes or so. But it actually takes like 10 minutes because it takes us 5 minutes to get started and everybody gets settled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll dive into like small groups. That's the typical order we've been doing it. And then we'll do like I'll do my little lecture. So far, we haven't had a speaker yet. You'd be the first one. Yeah, so I'm thinking we're gonna stick with that order. Is that all right?
So you said breakout groups will be first or second after me.
It'll be first, and then you can
Okay.
sort of give context to what we just went through. Like,
And what's the breakout going to be? The same topic?
yeah, so I didn't really have a plan for it just yet, but I think when I got on the phone call with you, like inspiration struck me. My thing that I was thinking about doing was sort of doing like some small group role play of how do you get a client, how do you build a relationship with a client on the first phone call? Because this is actually something I'm having to do in interview processes. Like they want to see how I would do that. And I was like, I don't know where I would start with that process. So I think that is relevant to relationships.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
And then you can go in and, I'm not going to dictate what you want to speak about or anything, but
No, that's helpful.
sort of relate that to how stories and analogies would help out. And I think that'd be a really impactful meeting.
I'll do that. And I think that's helpful. To me, typically, I do a first phone call just to schedule a first meeting. And the first meeting is kind of like the first date where you decide if you're going to work together or not.
Yeah.
And before they get ready to provide all this information to you, they're basically deciding, maybe they're interviewing multiple firms, multiple advisors. So to me, that's what I'll be happy to cover is like share my language and what I typically share in that first meeting and what questions they typically ask, what I might focus on depending on if they're getting ready to retire or if they're a young professional or a business owner. And you said I have about 20 or 30 minutes or less?
For this meeting, you'd probably have around 30 minutes because I don't know.
Oh, that's plenty. Yeah, will be great.
Also, I want to fully give you that, like, if you have a good topic that you think would be a good small group question for our groups and stuff that would be helpful for your presentation, we'll gladly do that if you have any ideas.
No, I like what Corrigan's talking about. And, I think that how long do they have for small group?
So probably 15 or 20 minutes. Just, it's very, it depends, but it feels like a lot longer. I think just because in the small groups, it's not like a classroom environment. So the conversation feels like an hour.
So maybe we do this. Maybe if it's 20 minutes, the first 10 minutes, we do the question like how do you convey the value you bring? So like basically if I'm talking to you, Corrigan, and you're a financial planner and I'm a business owner, what value, like what would you tell me is your value to me? Why should I hire you? Why should I hire a financial planner at all?
Yeah.
And so let them talk in groups of 3 or 4 of like, because I know there's a range of experiences and backgrounds and things. Some people are like really new to this group and some people have been around a few years, but like, I think that'd be kind of fun for people to share like, oh, well, it's good because, you need to save for retirement or whatever. And some people are going to be more like, well, you need a plan. And so then the second half say, okay, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm 60 years old. I've always managed my own money. I've saved, invested myself and done a really good job and have millions of dollars saved up. Why do I need a financial planner? What can you do for me?
Yeah, that's a really
good. So basically it's 2 people. It's like me as a 35-year-old business owner and then me as a 60-year-old almost retiring person. And I can even set those up if you want. Just saying like, hey, I'm 35-year-old business owner, married with 3 kids. I'm a do-it-yourself kind of guy, but like what value can you bring? And they come up with their language and we have someone from each group share. Like basically each group says like, hey, we pick you said it the best. You tell everybody in like 1 minute what you do.
Yeah. All right.
And then retirement. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect. That sounds like something exactly what I'm wanting to do with speakers. And just to like double check, would you be okay like going around and like checking up on the groups?
Yeah, I'm happy to interact and I'll plan to get there I'll probably head that way at like 5 and just try and get there a little early, and then we can kick it off. And you know, I'm happy to tee it off or set it up, tee it up, and then interact and mingle with people and just see what they're saying, and then we'll let people put each other on the spot and share.
What are you looking for? Could I actually get your number one more time? I got
Yeah, my
contact.
cell is 979.
Zach's gonna get it.
One second.
I don't have my phone
Come
number.
on, guys, come on.
Look up
I
in,
think I've got yours, Corrigan. Let me see.
because after 5 you can park right next to the building. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Yeah. 979
436
436
2696.
Oh, yeah.
2696. Awesome. I've got it down.
All right, y'all have a great rest of the day.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. See y'all soon.
See you
See
soon.
ya.
Thanks, bye.
Let's go to the-
Yeah.